This is the French town of Verdun, a name synonymous with the brutality and the artillery used in the First World War. In 1916, battles raged around here for nearly a year while the Germans tried to defeat the French army. However, I'm not here to look at that today, because on the 31st of August 1944, Verdun was liberated by the US 7th Armored Division, and I'm here to look at some then and now photos that can still be found in the town of Verdun today. Now, we're lucky that during the liberation here and then the subsequent parades afterwards into September 1944, a Life magazine photographer, Ralph Morse, was with the 7th Armored Division, and he captured some wonderful photos here in the town of Verdun. And it's that period of the war that, as we've gone from the Battle of Normandy and then into that breakout through Normandy into France, Paris was liberated, and then as the Allied armies rushed eastwards to the borders of Germany, that I think the interest in the Second World War we start to dip it a little bit. We have the huge interest in the Normandy battlefield and the invasion itself, but get to this point, late August 1944 and early September, when the German army's en route, I've noticed personally that the enthusiasm for that period kind of dips down, peaks up again for Market Garden, and then likewise for the Battle of the Bulge. But I think that to explore these places and these small French towns, especially Verdun, and it is so well known because of its connection to the First World War, but to see it here through the eyes or through the lens of the Second World War presents a really interesting opportunity to explore the place and to understand what the Allied armies were doing between that liberation of Paris and as they started to push east. Now, 7th Armored Division was part of 20th Corps, which was part of General George Patton's US 3rd Army. And after the breakout from Normandy, the Falaise Gap, and then the German army's route as it tried to get back and cross the Seine River, and then Paris was liberated. This is that point in the war where the Allies were on a real high. They thought that the war would be over by Christmas, and there wasn't really a lot to prove them wrong at this point. So when we see the troops coming through here in Verdun, the battle for Verdun was quite brief, didn't go on very long, and by the 31st of August 1944, Verdun was once again a French city under French control. And it's wonderful to be here. So the first images we'll look at are at the War Memorial to the First and Second World Wars here in Verdun. So I've just crossed over onto the eastern bank of the Meuse here in Verdun, and behind me is the incredible Verdun War Memorial. Now, clearly with all the fighting here from the First World War, it's predominantly aimed at that conflict, at the Great War, but it does also record the dates from the Second World War here. And the reason I've come here is not only is it a vastly impressive memorial, but there were two great photos taken by Ralph Morse of an M3 half-track here from the 48th Armoured Infantry Battalion of the 7th Armoured Division. And this is the first image, and we can see there the gunner has got his 50 cal trained up onto the slopes of the fort here, just on the banks of the River Meuse. But this image is a fantastic one, and we can clearly see the divisional and unit markings on the front bumper of the half-track there, while a couple of GIs in the background look around the memorial and take it all in. So this image is definitely less posed than the first one. We can see some of the crew there, or some GIs by the lamppost just resting, while a local Frenchman takes in the half track and has a good look at it. But also as well, we can see the door of the half track is open and there's a cover over the 50 cal, and it looks like some of the crew are at the rear of the vehicle. What I think is great about this image is we can see just the general equipment and stuff needed for soldiers to function out of these vehicles. There's ammo crates on it, there are bedrolls. You can even see the mount for a 50 cal there, just slung above the front bumper. And what's wonderful is this memorial and the surrounding area has barely changed in the intervening 80 years. So I've walked into the centre of Verdun now, and behind me is the memorial to the soldiers of Verdun and their victory here. And I must say, it's an incredibly impressive memorial. It dominates the skyline here. But at the base of the steps here are three then and now photos that we're going to look at. Now, the first one's a German one taken, I believe, in summer of 1940, after they reoccupied France during Case Yellow and the invasion of France. And then the other two are from its liberation by the 7th Armoured Division here on the 31st of August and then into September 1944.
General der Infanterie Busch nimmt den Vorbeimarsch ab. Die Straßen Verduns hallen vom Marschtritt der deutschen Kolonnen wieder.
So you can see behind me just how dominating that memorial is. And all three photos were taken at the base of the steps to it. So the first one we'll look at was taken, as I say, in the summer of 1940, I believe, and you can really see as the Germans march past and their officers taking the salute, the place is draped with swastikas and battle flags, really in an attempt to rub the French nose in it, especially given the fighting that took place just north of Verdun here in 1916 between the French and the German armies. And here's the image. And in Great Britain, we would typically say that they're goose-stepping as they march past in the traditional German style. And that is the view today. Now, the next image taken here, fast forwarding about 4 years, and we can see the wonderful WC-54 Dodge ambulances, most likely of the 7th Armoured Division, parked up at the base of the steps to the memorial. Now we can see from the view that not a lot has changed in the intervening 80 years other than a slight new addition to the memorial itself. But incredible to think that just 4 years apart from when the Germans were marching past here to when the American 7th Armoured Division liberated the town on the 31st of August 1944, the two photographers stood in almost the same spot. And yeah, just a really incredible trip back in time here in Verdun. And the final image I want to look at here at this memorial is of Major General Lindsay MacDonald Sylvester. He was the commanding officer of the 7th Armoured Division, and it was taken during a medal ceremony with the local town officials here in Verdun in September 1944. And there's the image. We can see the general on the right there with the salute going past the honour guard of troops from the 7th Armoured and local French soldiers. I'm not sure if they were resistance or part of the Free French Army, but we can see there the dignitaries on the steps as the Major General there is heading up to them to take part in the ceremony. So I've just walked down from the big Victory Memorial, and it was on this corner that the photographer Ralph Morse took some really great photos of the Liberation Parade that took place here in Verdun in September 1944. Now, I'm not going to talk you through each and every single image, there's quite a few of them, but the white building behind me there on the corner features prominently in all of them, as well as some of these buildings behind me where we can see the local population have turned out to welcome the American liberators and to show their gratitude and to enjoy the parade after all of those years of occupation. But I think it's great, we can see Jeeps passing by, more M10 Tank Destroyers, and they are some excellent photos. But the one that we will look at is a particular favourite of mine. So this is the image in question, and we can see all of the crowds that have turned out to celebrate their liberation. And what I think is great is we can see the Jeep driving past. It's got some big cable reels on the back, so possibly from one of the signal corps units that was part of 7th Armoured. And further down the street we can see M3 half-tracks as well as that M10 Tank Destroyer parked up. And that's the view today. Not a lot has changed. The doorway is still there, and the building where the M10 Tank Destroyer was parked out the front of is now an optician's. Clearly this street has changed a lot with the trees that have been planted, and I actually think it looks nicer now in 2024 than it did back in 1944, and if you regularly watch this channel you'll know I won't often say that, but it's really nice to see how little this has changed. Right, so from this spot where all of those photos of the Liberation Parade were taken, now going to go down just about 50 meters to another spot to look at the last image here from Verdun itself.
Verdun, historic battlefield of World War I, under night attack by German heavy bombers. The cathedral is in flames after a direct hit. Verdun was entered on 31st August by 3rd Army troops moving eastward following the fall of Reims. Crossing the Meuse River in the drive toward the German line.
So for the last image that I want to find here in the heart of the town of Verdun itself is a great one showing some M10 Tank Destroyers from the US 7th Armored Division. And ironically, when I was looking for the location of this image, the building behind me there, you can see the green cross on it, is a pharmacy. And that's nothing new because 80 years ago, we can see in the photo that it was a pharmacy back then, or a drugstore to put it in American terms. And I think that's great that that has remained basically the same in the past 80 years. I think that's really, really cool. And here's the image in question. You can clearly see there the two M10 Tank Destroyers and the crews and GIs around them, as well as some of the local French townsfolk and local car. But we can see there on the edge of the image the pharmacy building from September 1944, when, if this was part of the actual Liberation Parade itself, then it would have taken place in September. And that is the view today. And not a lot has changed. The buildings still all remain the same. It's only the modern street layout and the vehicles really, along with the signs, that have shown any change. But other than that, this spot remains as it did in September 1944. So I hope you've enjoyed this part one of a two-part episode looking at then and nows here in Verdun and the surrounding area. Part two will be out soon, and check that out because some of those images are incredible and we can see that connection with those back to the First World War. Okay, I'll see you all in the next one.